What if I told you the biggest, most life-changing moments aren't the loud, explosive ones? We always think that to get massive success, we need to take massive earth-shattering action. We put so much pressure on ourselves to make some huge improvement that everyone will notice. But what if the real secret to changing your life lies in something much, much smaller? James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, argues that the truly defining moments of our lives, the ones that shape our destiny, aren't the big breakthroughs. They're the tiny, almost invisible 1% improvements we make every single day. Let's talk about the mathematics of destiny. It sounds grand, but it's surprisingly simple. Imagine you decide to get just 1% better at something every day. Just 1%. It's so small, you'd barely notice it. But here's where the magic happens. Compounding. If you improve by 1% each day for a year, the math looks like this. 1.01 raised to the power of 365. The result? You end up nearly 38 times better than when you started. 38 times. Now, let's flip that. What if you get 1% worse each day? If you slip just a tiny bit, consistently, by the end of the year, you've declined to almost zero. The difference between becoming 38 times better or fading into nothingness is just a tiny, daily choice. Think of it like this. An airplane takes off from Los Angeles, headed for New York City. Right after takeoff, the pilot makes a tiny adjustment to the heading, just 3.5 degrees south. So small, no one on the plane would feel a thing. The nose of the plane has barely moved, but over the course of that cross-country flight, this tiny, almost unnoticeable shift in direction completely changes the destination. Instead of landing in New York, the plane touches down in Washington, D.C. A small change in the beginning leads to a massive difference in the end. Your daily habits are your trajectory. A seemingly minor shift in your habits can guide you to a completely different destination in life. Now, this is the part where most of us give up. You start a new habit. You go to the gym for a week. You eat healthy for a few days. You write a page of your book every morning. You're putting in the effort. You're making those 1% improvements. But you look in the mirror. You step on the scale. You check your bank account. And nothing seems to have changed. This is what James Clear calls the valley of disappointment. It's that frustrating gap between what you expect to happen and what's actually happening. You feel like all your hard work is for nothing. But here's the crucial secret. Your work isn't wasted. It's being stored. Think of it like an ice cube in a room that's slowly warming up. 26 degrees, 27, 28. Nothing happens. It's still a block of ice. Then, at 32 degrees, it starts to melt. Did all that warming from 26 to 31 degrees do nothing? No, of course not. It was storing energy. Your efforts are the same. They are building up, creating what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. You have to push through the valley of disappointment to break through that plateau. Every bit of work you do is storing potential, waiting for that breakthrough moment. The biggest rewards are always delayed. It's the people who can keep going, day after day, without immediate results, who eventually reap the incredible benefits of compounding. Alright, so before we can even begin to change our habits, we have to understand the biological software that's running in the background of our minds, 24/7. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. Its job is to constantly scan the world around you, predict what's going to happen next, and find the path of least resistance to a reward. This entire process is governed by a simple but powerful 4-step loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's break it down. Step 1 is the cue. This is the spark. The cue is all about noticing. It's that tiny bit of information that predicts a reward is coming. In our evolutionary past, a cue might have been the sound of rustling leaves, predicting a predator, or the sight of a berry bush, predicting food. But today, our cues are much more subtle. It's the buzz of your phone in your pocket. It's the smell of cinnamon as you walk past a bakery. It can even be that feeling of stress that washes over you when you sit down at your desk to start work. The cue itself doesn't hold the power. Its power lies in what it promises is coming next. This brings us to step 2. The craving. This is the engine. It's the motivational force behind every single habit. Without a craving, we have no reason to act. But here's the secret that most people miss. You don't actually crave the habit itself. You crave the change in state it provides. Think about it. You don't crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief and stress reduction it brings. You don't crave mindlessly scrolling through TikTok. You crave that little hit of entertainment to escape boredom. Every single craving is linked to a desire to change your internal climate, to feel differently. If the cue is the spark, the craving is the gasoline poured on the fire. Next up, step 3, the response. This is the action. The response is the actual habit you perform, whether it's a physical action or just a thought. Now, whether a response actually happens depends on 2 things: how motivated you are and how much friction is associated with that behavior. If a particular action requires more physical or mental effort than you're willing to put in at that moment, the response fails. The loop breaks right here. This is exactly why making your good habits as easy as possible is so critical. If the barrier to entry is too high, you simply won't do it. And finally, we arrive at step 4, the reward. This is the destination. The reward serves two very important purposes. First, it satisfies us. We get what we were after: the caffeine hit, the social validation, the sugar rush. But second, and more importantly, it teaches us. Your brain is like a little economist. It's constantly asking, was that action worth the effort? If the reward is positive, your brain bookmarks that cue for the future. So the next time you see that cue, the craving will be even stronger. This is exactly how a habit gets locked into your neurology, creating a powerful, automatic loop. Let's take a real-world example: the infinite scroll on social media. The cue: you feel a millisecond of boredom or uncertainty. That's an internal cue. The craving: you want to feel entertained or connected. The response: you instinctively flick your thumb upward on the screen. And the reward: you see a funny meme, an interesting video, or a photo from a friend. Because that reward is so immediate and also unpredictable, your brain gets hooked. It learns that a quick flick of the thumb can solve boredom, turning the loop into a powerful, and sometimes addictive, cycle. Now, here's where most people go wrong with habits. They fail because they're trying to change the wrong thing. Imagine 3 concentric circles, like a bullseye. The outermost layer is about changing your outcomes. This is what you get: losing 20 pounds, writing a book, winning a trophy. The middle layer is changing your process. This is what you do: your gym routine, your writing schedule, your meditation practice. But the core layer, the very center of the bullseye, is about changing your identity. This is what you believe about yourself, your self-image, your worldview, your fundamental character. So why do so many of us struggle? It's because we almost always build outcome-based habits. We start from the outside in. We say, I want to be thin, which is an outcome, so I will go on this diet, which is a process. And this might work for a little while, but it's incredibly brittle. The moment life gets stressful or inconvenient, we snap right back to our old identity, who we truly believe we are. To make a habit stick for good, you have to work from the inside out. You must move from I am trying to be this person to I am this person. James Clear uses a brilliant example to illustrate this. Imagine 2 people who are both trying to quit smoking. Someone walks up and offers them a cigarette. Person A says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Now, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable response, but listen closely. Person A still believes they are a smoker who is simply trying to be something else. They're relying on willpower to override their core identity. Now, person B says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Do you see the difference? This is a massive shift. Person B no longer identifies with the behavior. Smoking is part of their past, not their present, is not part of their world anymore. When your behavior and your identity are perfectly aligned, you no longer have to pursue change. You are simply acting like the person you already believe yourself to be. At this point, you might be wondering, okay, that sounds great, but how do I change my identity? I can't just flip a switch and believe I am an athlete if I haven't run in 10 years. And you are right, identity isn't built overnight. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy built through evidence. Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Every time you write a single page, you are casting a vote for I am a writer. Every time you start a workout, no matter how short, you are casting a vote for I am an athlete. Every time you encourage a coworker, you are casting a vote for I am a leader. And here is the best part. You don't need a perfect record to win an election. You don't need to be 100% consistent. You just need to have the majority of the votes. If you miss a day at the gym, you haven't lost the election. You just had one bad voting day. The goal is simply to let the new you win by a landslide over time. So, as we move into the 4 laws of behavior change, I want you to keep this framework in mind. We aren't just trying to get better results. We are trying to become better people. We are designing a system that makes success the inevitable byproduct of who we are. Now, let's dive into the first law and learn how to make our good habits so obvious that we can't possibly miss them. All right, welcome to the first pillar of behavior change. If the fundamentals we just talked about are the foundation of your house, then this first law is the blueprint. And it's incredibly simple: make it obvious. So many of us think we lack motivation, but what we really lack is clarity. We're sitting around waiting for that magical feeling of inspiration to strike, not realizing that our environment has already been making choices for us since the moment we woke up. We love to think of ourselves as these independent thinkers with total free will, right? But the truth is, a lot of the time, we're just reacting to the cues in our environment. James Clear calls this environment design the invisible hand that shapes our behavior. And the biggest driver of this is our sight. We are incredibly visual creatures. A huge part of our brain is dedicated just to processing what we see. This means visual cues are the most powerful catalysts for our behavior. Think about how a supermarket is designed. Why is the milk always at the very back of the store? It's not an accident. They want you to walk past every single aisle, especially those end caps filled with hyperfit snacks and colorful drinks. You didn't go in wanting chips, but they were right there. They were obvious. And now they're in your cart. You just fell victim to something called choice architecture. To really understand how powerful our environment is, we have to look at one of the most famous studies in the history of psychology. Back in 1971, during the Vietnam War, two researchers discovered something that completely shocked the public. Nearly 20% of all U.S. soldiers stationed in Vietnam had become addicted to heroin. And this wasn't just casual use. These were full-blown addictions. Naturally, people back home were terrified. They pictured tens of thousands of addicts returning to the streets, imagining a massive crime wave. But then, the soldiers came home, and something absolutely miraculous happened. The researchers followed up with the veterans and found that 90% of them just quit. Spontaneously, they didn't go to rehab. They didn't suffer through years of painful withdrawals. They just stopped. How? Why? Well, in Vietnam, the cues for heroin use were everywhere. The constant stress of combat, the easy access to the drug, the fact that their entire peer group was doing it. But when they returned to the United States, they were in a completely different environment. Their parents' house, their old bedroom, the local diner, none of these places contained the cue for heroin. The habit had no trigger. The lesson here is profound. If you want to break a bad habit, you don't necessarily need more willpower. You need a better environment. So, if the environment is the invisible hand, you need to become the architect of that hand. You need to rig the game so your good habits are the easiest path to follow. Let's take a simple example. You want to remember to take your vitamins every morning, but you keep forgetting. It's probably because they're hidden away in a dark cabinet. So, move the bottle, put it right on the bathroom counter, next to your toothbrush. Now you literally can't brush your teeth without seeing the vitamins. The cue is unavoidable. You've made it obvious. This applies to your digital environment, too. If you're spending way too much time scrolling Instagram, move the app off your home screen. Bury it in a folder on the third page of your phone. By making it less obvious, you break that automatic, mindless loop of opening the app. Okay, now that we understand the why, let's get into the how. Here are 3 practical tools you can use today to make your habits more obvious. First up is the habit scorecard. Before you can build better habits, you have to be aware of the ones you already have. Most of our day is lived on autopilot. So, the exercise is simple. For one day, write down everything you do. Wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, go to bathroom. Weigh myself, just list it all out. Then, next to each action, put a plus sign for a positive habit, a minus sign for a negative one, or an equal sign for a neutral one, based on the person you want to become. The goal here isn't to judge yourself. It's simply to bring awareness to your actions, to turn those unconscious cues into conscious ones. The second tool is called implementation intentions. A lot of people think they lack motivation when what they really lack is a concrete plan. They'll say, I'm going to eat better, but what does better even mean? Your brain doesn't know what to do with that. Instead, use this simple formula. I will do this behavior, at this time, in this location. For example, instead of I'll meditate more, you say, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. See how specific that is? When the time and place are set, you no longer have to wait for inspiration. You just follow the script you wrote for yourself. The third and final tool is habit stacking. This is one of the best ways to build a new habit because you piggyback it onto a habit you already do without thinking. Your brain has already built strong pathways for things like making coffee or taking your shoes off when you get home. The formula is, after my current habit, I will do my new habit. For example, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. Or, after I sit down for dinner, I will thank my spouse for one thing they did today. By stacking the new behavior onto an old one, you're using the momentum you already have to carry the new habit forward. So, to wrap up this first law, stop trying to be a person with superhuman willpower and start being a person who builds a high-quality environment. Look around your room, your office, your phone. Is the path to your best self obvious, or is it hidden? In the next section, we're going to dive into the second law. Make it attractive. We'll get into the neuroscience of dopamine and explore how you can make even the most boring habits feel like something you actually want to do. We've made our habits obvious, but that's only half the battle. You can put your running shoes right in the middle of the living room, but if the thought of running makes you miserable, those shoes will stay right where they are. This brings us to the second law of behavior change. Make it attractive. This is the law of cravings. If the first law was about noticing the cue, the second law is all about wanting to act on it. To understand what makes something attractive, we have to talk about a little molecule called dopamine. For decades, scientists thought dopamine was all about pleasure. They thought you got a hit of dopamine when you ate a delicious cookie or won a video game. But we now know that dopamine is actually about anticipation. It's the wanting, not the liking. Back in the 1940s, researchers did a fascinating experiment. They found that if they blocked dopamine in rats, the rats lost all will to live. They wouldn't eat, they wouldn't mate, they wouldn't do anything, even though they still enjoyed the food if it was placed directly in their mouths. They had the liking, but they had no wanting. It turns out, your brain has far more neural circuitry dedicated to wanting rewards than it does to liking them. This is why the anticipation of a vacation is often more exciting than the vacation itself. It's the countdown, the planning, the dreaming that gets the dopamine flowing. Your brain is constantly running a calculation. Think of it like this. Your satisfaction equals your reality minus your expectation. When you anticipate a reward and you get it, that dopamine spike reinforces the habit. But if you anticipate something and it doesn't happen, dopamine levels drop and you feel that disappointing crash. So, to make a habit stick, we have to hijack this system. We have to make the idea of the habit attractive before we even start doing it. But how much of what we find attractive is actually our choice? James Clear tells the incredible story of Lsel Polgar, a Hungarian psychologist who had a radical belief: genius is not born, it's made. Lsel decided to test this theory with his own children. He made a bold decision. His children would become world-class chess players. He didn't wait for them to show some kind of natural talent. Instead, he designed their entire world around chess. Their house was filled with chess books. The walls were covered with pictures of grandmasters. They played constantly. It was their entire environment. The results were absolutely staggering. His oldest daughter, Susan, became a grandmaster at age 21. The middle daughter, Sophia, became a world champion. And the youngest, Judith, became the greatest female chess player in history. At one point, ranking in the top 10 of all players in the world, male or female. Here's the key lesson. Chess wasn't work for the Polgar sisters. It was attractive because it was the normal behavior of their tribe, their family. We are wired to find behaviors attractive when they help us fit in. We don't want to be the odd one out. So, if you want to make a habit attractive, you need to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. We are social animals, through and through. We are constantly imitating the habits of 3 specific groups. First, the close. This is your inner circle, your friends and family. Research shows that if your spouse starts eating healthy, you're much more likely to eat healthy too. Their habits rub off on you. Second, the many. This is the crowd, the culture at large. We instinctively look to see what everyone else is doing to figure out the right way to act in any given situation. It's a survival instinct. And third, the powerful. We imitate people with status and prestige because, on some level, we want that status for ourselves. We see what successful people do and we think, if I do that, maybe I'll be successful too. So, how do you use this? Let's say you want to read more. Don't just buy a book and hope for the best. Join a book club. When the many of the group values reading, the act of reading itself becomes socially attractive. It's not just about the book anymore. It's about belonging, sharing ideas, and being part of the group. But what if the habit is just boring? What if you truly hate doing your taxes or running on a treadmill? There's no book club for that. This is where a brilliant strategy called temptation bundling comes in. This term was coined by researcher Katie Milkman, and the idea is incredibly simple. Link an action you want to do with an action you need to do. Let me tell you about Ronan Byrne. Ronan was an engineering student in Dublin who knew he needed to exercise more, but he absolutely loved watching Netflix. So, he used his engineering skills to hack a stationary bike. He wrote a computer program that would only allow Netflix to play if he was cycling at a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show paused. He brilliantly bundled the high dopamine reward of watching his favorite show with the low dopamine task of exercising. The formula is simple. First, after I do my current habit, I will do the habit I need. Second, after I do the habit I need, I will do the habit I want. For example, after I get my morning coffee, I will process my work emails, that's the need. After I process my work emails, I will check sports scores, that's the want. You're sandwiching the boring task between 2 things you already do and enjoy. So to wrap up, making a habit attractive is all about changing the feeling associated with it. It's about leveraging dopamine and social pressure to pull you toward your goals, instead of trying to push yourself with sheer force and willpower. Next up, we're moving to the third law. Make it easy. We are going to discuss why working harder is usually the wrong strategy, and how the simple 2-minute rule can stop you from ever quitting again. Have you ever noticed how we live in a culture that completely worships the grind? We're constantly told that if you want something bad enough, you just have to work harder, sweat more, and power through the pain. It sounds inspiring, but what if I told you that when it comes to building good habits, willpower is actually a failed strategy? Today, we're tackling the game-changing third law of behavior change. Make it easy. Now, this isn't about being lazy. It's about being smart. It's about designing your life so that good habits align with the most powerful law in the universe, the path of least resistance. Let's start with a question. Have you ever spent weeks researching the perfect workout app, buying the best running shoes, and mapping out a detailed 12-week diet plan? But you haven't actually lifted a single weight yet. If you're nodding your head, you've fallen into what James Clear calls the trap of motion versus action. Here's the difference. Motion is when you're planning, strategizing, and learning. It feels productive, but it doesn't actually produce a result on its own. Action, on the other hand, is the behavior that delivers an outcome. Going to the gym is action. Researching workout plans is motion. Writing a chapter of your book is action. Brainstorming ideas for it is motion. So why do we get stuck in motion? Because motion feels safe. It gives us the illusion of progress without any risk of failure. If I spend all day researching how to start a business, I can't fail at starting a business. But the moment I start making calls and building a product, the moment I take action, I might face rejection or make a mistake. Let me share a brilliant real-world example from the book. Jerry Olsman, a photography professor at the University of Florida, ran a fascinating experiment. He divided his class into two groups. The quantity group would be graded purely on the number of photos they submitted. 100 photos got you an A, 90 got you a B, and so on. The quality group, however, only needed to submit one single photo. But to get an A, it had to be a nearly perfect image. At the end of the semester, he gathered all the best photos produced by the entire class. And where did they come from? Overwhelmingly, the best, most technically perfect, and most artistic photos all came from the quantity group. Why? While the quality group sat around theorizing about what makes a perfect photo, getting lost in the motion of perfectionism, the quantity group was out there taking hundreds of pictures. They were in constant action. They were experimenting with composition, mastering their lighting, and learning from their mistakes with every click of the shutter. They weren't just thinking about being great photographers. They were doing the work of a great photographer. The lesson here is profound. Stop waiting for the perfect plan or the perfect moment. Don't get paralyzed by motion. Just start doing. Embrace the machinaces of action, because that's where the real learning and progress happen. This brings us directly to the core principle of this law, the law of least effort. Human beings are fundamentally wired to conserve energy. Every action we take requires a certain amount of it, and the more energy an action requires, the less likely we are to do it. It's not a moral failing, it's just human nature. Imagine your good habit is a garden hose with a big kink in it. If you want more water to flow, you have two options. You could crank up the water pressure, that's your willpower, and try to force the water through. Or, you could simply walk over and unkink the hose. This is reducing friction. Friction is the invisible barrier standing between you and your good habits. It's the small annoying things that drain your energy before you even start. The secret to building good habits is to reduce this friction as much as possible. If you want to go for a run in the morning, don't just decide to do it. Lay out your running clothes, shoes, and headphones the night before. Reduce the friction so you can just get up and go. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, you need to increase the friction. If you find yourself watching way too much TV, don't just rely on willpower to stop. Take the batteries out of the remote and put them in a drawer in another room. Unplug the TV after you use it. Each of these small steps adds a layer of friction that makes the bad habit less likely to occur. In Japanese factories, they pioneered a system called lean production. They meticulously analyzed their assembly lines to eliminate every single ounce of wasted effort. If a worker had to bend down or reach too far for a tool, they re-engineered the workstation to bring the tool closer. They weren't making the workers lazy. They were making them more efficient by removing friction. We need to apply this same lean mindset to our own lives. Prime your environment for success. If you want to eat healthier, don't just buy vegetables. Spend an hour on Sunday chopping them up and putting them in clear containers at the front of your fridge. When you're hungry on Tuesday, the healthy choice is now the easy choice. Unkink the hose. Okay, so we know we need to reduce friction, but even then, starting can feel overwhelming. We get excited about a new goal and immediately try to do too much. I'm going to run a marathon, we say, and then we try to run 5 miles on the first day, burn out, and quit. James Clear's brilliant solution to this is the 2-minute rule. It's simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. That's it. You aren't trying to achieve the ultimate goal right away. You are simply mastering the art of showing up. The goal is to make the start of the habit so easy that you can't say no. So, read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for my exam becomes open my notes. And run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. You might be thinking, what's the point of just taking out my yoga mat? That doesn't do anything. But you're missing the most important part. You can't improve a habit that doesn't exist. Before you can optimize a habit, you have to standardize it. You have to make it a non-negotiable part of your routine. The point of the 2-minute rule isn't about the 2 minutes of action. It's about casting a vote for your new identity. A person who goes to the gym for only 5 minutes is still becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Once you've established the identity, once you are a person who shows up, it is so much easier to scale up. 5 minutes can become 10, then 20, then a full hour. But you have to master the art of showing up first. Every single day is filled with a handful of small choices that have a massive impact on your life. Clear calls these decisive moments. Picture this. You're driving home from a long day at work. You approach a familiar intersection. If you turn left, you go to the gym. If you turn right, you go home, collapse on the couch, and order takeout. That 10-second decision at the intersection is the decisive moment. It dictates your entire evening, what you eat, how you feel, how you sleep. The entire third law is about engineering your life to make that left turn to the gym as effortless as possible. It's about having your gym bag already packed in the car. It's about choosing a gym that's literally on your way home. It's about making the good choice, the easy choice, so that in those decisive moments, you naturally flow down the right path. So, let's bring it all together. The third law, make it easy, isn't about avoiding hard work. It's about ensuring your precious energy goes into the work itself, not into the struggle just to start the work. It's about being an architect of your habits, not a victim of your environment. Stop fighting a constant uphill battle against yourself. Stop relying on willpower. Instead, find the kink in the hose and straighten it out. I hope this has given you some practical tools to make your good habits stick. Alright, we've finally made it to the fourth and final pillar of behavior change. Make it satisfying. Think of it like this. The first three laws making it obvious, attractive, and easier, all about getting you to perform a behavior this one time. But this fourth law, making it satisfying, is the secret sauce that ensures you'll repeat the behavior next time. It's the glue that holds the entire habit loop together. In the world of habit formation, the finish line of one cycle is the starting block for the next. If completing a habit doesn't feel good, your brain basically flags it as not worth the effort and deletes that mental shortcut it just created. So, let's make our good habits stick. The cardinal rule of behavior change is incredibly simple, yet profound. James Clear puts it like this: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Now, that sounds like common sense, but we're actually fighting a constant battle against our own biology. For most of human history, we lived in what scientists call an immediate return environment. Our actions had immediate consequences. If you were hungry, you hunted and ate. If a lion appeared, you ran, and the reward was survival. The cause and effect were tightly linked. But today, we live in a delayed return environment. You go to the gym, but you don't get a six-pack overnight. That reward is months away. You save money for retirement, but you won't see that reward for decades. You study for a degree, but graduation is years in the future. The problem is, our brains haven't really evolved much in the last 50,000 years. They still crave that immediate hit of dopamine over the promise of some distant success. This mismatch is exactly why it's so easy to grab a donut and immediate, sugary reward even when we know it sabotages our long-term diet goals. Our modern world is set up for delayed rewards, but our ancient brains want satisfaction right now. So, how do we bridge this gap? How do we make a delayed reward feel immediate? The answer is by using the power of visual progress. Let me tell you the story of Trent Dyersmith. Back in 1993, he was a 23-year-old stockbroker just starting out. He wasn't a genius, he didn't have a huge network, but he became a superstar almost overnight. His secret was ridiculously simple: 2 jars on his desk. One jar was filled with 120 paper clips, and the other was empty. Every single morning, he'd start making his sales calls, and for every single call he made, he would move one paper clip from the full jar to the empty one. He didn't stop his workday until all 120 paper clips had been moved. Within just 18 months, this simple system helped him bring in $5 million in assets and earned him a 6-figure salary. Why did this work so well? Because making sales calls is tough, it's filled with rejection, but moving a paperclip, that provides a small, immediate, tangible sense of victory. It satisfies the brain's craving for a reward right now. It's a visual representation of progress that makes the hard work feel good. You can apply this brilliant paperclip strategy to anything. Want to write a book? Get 2 jars and move a marble for every 100 words you write. Trying to save money? Every time you skip buying that expensive coffee, immediately transfer $5 into a separate travel fund account. Watching that account balance grow provides the immediate satisfaction that makes the daily sacrifice feel worthwhile. One of the most effective ways to visualize your progress is with a habit tracker. This can be as simple as a calendar where you draw a big red X over every day you complete your habit. As you mark off each day, you start to build a chain of X's. After a few days, something magical happens. Your motivation shifts. You're no longer just trying to work out or meditate. You're now motivated to protect the chain. The act of drawing that X becomes its own little immediate reward. A satisfying click in your brain that says, "Job well done." But there is a dark side to tracking. If you get too obsessed with the number and lose sight of the purpose behind the habit, you can fall victim to what's known as Goodhart's Law. It states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. For example, if your goal is just to hit 10,000 steps, you might find yourself just pacing around your living room at night to hit the number, even if you are exhausted. The goal isn't just to have a perfect streak. The real goal is to become the type of person who consistently shows up. The tracker is a tool, not the ultimate prize. That brings us to an absolutely crucial rule: never miss twice. Let's be real. Life is messy. You're going to get sick. You'll have to work late. You'll travel. Eventually, you are going to break your streak. This is the moment where most people give up. When they miss one day, they feel like a complete failure. That all-or-nothing mentality kicks in, and they think, well, I already ruined my diet with that pizza, so I might as well eat the entire cake too. This is a trap. James Clear's rule is brilliantly simple. Never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. It happens. Missing twice is the beginning of a new, negative habit. The key is to get back on track immediately. If you can't do your full 60-minute workout, then just go to the gym and do 5 minutes of stretching. If you miss your morning meditation, do 1 minute before bed. Just do enough to keep the identity alive, to remind yourself that you are still a person who works out, who meditates. The satisfying part of this rule is the immense pride you'll feel for showing up even when you didn't feel like it. That sense of resilience is an incredibly powerful reward in itself. Now, sometimes positive reinforcement isn't quite enough. We also need to use the fourth law in reverse. Make it unsatisfying to skip a habit. Just as we repeat what's rewarded, we avoid what's punished. To do this, you can create a habit contract. This is a formal agreement, either with yourself or with an accountability partner, where you commit to a habit and spell out the immediate consequence for failing. For example, you could write a contract that says, if I miss a workout this week, I have to pay my friend $50. Suddenly, the comfort of staying on the couch has a very real, immediate, and painful cost. This immediate punishment can be just the push you need to overcome a moment of laziness. So, to wrap up this section, the fourth law, make it satisfying, is all about making sure the you of today feels good about the choices you made. By adding immediate rewards, visualizing your progress, and even adding a little bit of pain for inaction, you bridge that gap between your daily efforts and your long-term goals. We've now covered all 4 laws of behavior change, but we're not done yet. We are entering the final stretch. In our next chapter, we'll dive into advanced tactics. We're going to explore how to go from good to great, the surprising role genetics plays in our habits, and the Goldilocks rule for staying motivated forever. Alright, so by now you have all the tools you need to build a solid system of habits. But how do you take it to the next level? How do you make sure you don't just hit a plateau and get stuck there for the next 10 years? In this final section, we're diving into the advanced tactics of high performance. We'll talk about finding the right game to play, staying motivated when things get boring, and the real secret to achieving elite mastery. First up, let's talk about talent. There's this popular myth out there that you can be anything you want to be, as long as you just work hard enough. James Clear offers a more nuanced truth. Hard work is absolutely essential, but it's way more effective when you apply it to the right things. Think about 2 incredible athletes, Michael Phelps, the most decorated swimmer in history, and Hicham El Guerrouj, the world record holder in the mile run. Phelps is 6'4" with long arms and short legs. He's basically built like a human paddle. El Guerrouj is 5'9" with super long legs and a lean torso. He is built for maximum efficiency on land. Now, imagine if these two swapped sports. No amount of atomic habits or sheer willpower would make them world champions. Their genetics gave them a natural ceiling for one sport and a high floor for the other. The lesson here isn't that hard work doesn't matter. It's that your genes don't eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell you where your hard work will pay the biggest dividends. So, if you're not sure where your talents lie, try what Clear calls the exploration strategy. Spend about 80% of your time exploring new habits and skills, and 20% exploiting what you find works. Once you find a win, something you're naturally good at and enjoy, flip that ratio. Ask yourself this powerful question: what feels like work to other people but feels like play to me? That right there is where your unique competitive advantage is hiding. Next, how do you stay motivated for the long haul? The biggest threat to your success isn't failure, it's boredom. We all hit that point where the initial excitement wears off. To combat this, Clear introduces the Goldilocks rule. It says that humans experience peak motivation when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Think about it. If a task is too easy, like playing tennis against a 4-year-old, you'll get bored almost immediately. If it's way too hard, like playing against Roger Federer, you'll get frustrated and quit. But if the task is just challenging enough, say, about 4% beyond your current skill level, you enter that magical state of flow. You're fully engaged. The challenge is stimulating, and you lose track of time. This is what high achievers do instinctively. They stay in this Goldilocks zone. They don't do the exact same workout every single day. They add 1 more pound to the bar. They don't write the same kind of article every day. They try a more complex story structure. They keep the game interesting by continuously making it just a little bit more challenging. Now, let's talk about the hidden downside of habits. Habits are the foundation of mastery, but they come with a hidden danger. Once a habit becomes automatic, you stop paying close attention to it. You get good enough to get by, but you stop getting better. This is why so many people can drive a car for 20 years, but they are expert drivers. They're just experienced drivers. They're on autopilot. To reach elite levels of performance in any field, you need a new formula. It's habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Your habits give you the speed and consistency, but deliberate practice gives you the direction and improvement. This means you have to consciously look for your own mistakes and actively work to fix them. You can't just go through the motions. Elite performers, from NBA players to top CEOs, all have a system for reflection. You can build one too. Start with an annual review. At the end of each year, sit down and ask yourself, what went well this year? What didn't go so well? And what did I learn from it all? Then, you can add an integrity report every 6 months. This is where you ask yourself the tough questions. Am I living up to the identity I claim to have? Where did I cut corners or let myself off the hook? This system of review keeps you conscious, honest, and always moving forward. We've come a long way. We've looked at the science of cues, the power of your environment, the 2-minute rule, and the incredible math of 1% gains. But if you only remember one thing from this entire journey, let it be this. Success is not a goal to be reached or a finish line to be crossed. It is a system to be improved and a process to be endlessly refined. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. The word atomic in Atomic Habits actually has 2 meanings. First, it means tiny and fundamental, like an atom, but it also means the source of immense, explosive power, like an atomic bomb. When you align enough of these tiny, 1% changes in the right direction, day after day, the result is a powerful explosion of personal transformation. So, start today. Don't start with a marathon. Start with a short walk. Don't try to write a book. Just write 1 page. Cast that first, small vote for the person you want to become. To quickly recap the core framework for building good habits, the first law is to make it obvious. Design your environment for success and use habit stacking. The second law is to make it attractive. Join a tribe that has the habits you want and use temptation bundling. The third law is to make it easy. Follow the 2-minute rule and reduce every ounce of friction. And the fourth law is to make it satisfying. Use a habit tracker and embrace the mantra, never miss twice. And of course, to break a bad habit, you just invert these laws. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Ultimately, your atomic habits are the atoms of your life. Individually, they seem small and insignificant. But together, they form the molecules of your identity, shaping who you are and who you will become. You don't need to be 100% better tomorrow. You just need to be 1% better. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, a like and subscribe would mean the world. See you next time.